It doesn't make any sense to me. I like how Joe Clapp put it. He said that what the Falcons essentially did was they got married to Kirk Cousins, and to celebrate that marriage, they went out to the bar that night to go find their second wife.
Uh, Kind of like that logic.
No.
Oh, no, I don't think the dog like that.
I think he's gonna tell on you.
Yeah, I thought Fozzie and I were dudes.
Sleeping on the couch tonight. Welcome to the Circus Couch. Ow! Rewind it back, give a listen, tell me I'm wrong. I'm becoming a social media guru. I'm always up for the challenge.
Are you kidding me? This is something that you've never seen in the history of golf. Guess who called that one? What more can you say?
I am dubbed the Houston player hater. I don't have time to believe. I want that golden sombrero and have the heart of the champion, as some would say.
You got butthurt.
What is he thinking? Do you remember the bubble? Didn't really look too fancy in my eyes.
I do have a couple W's in my belt.
Is he the greatest of all time? It is like magic.
We are going around the country this week. We're taking stops in Wisconsin, Northern California, Texas, and Montana. Where are we starting out first? First stop is going to be Madison, Wisconsin, here with Jesse Larson to talk some playoff hockey to open the show. Jesse, welcome in.
Going on, Jordan.
A lot is going on. We got hockey to talk. We got playoff basketball. We got draft reaction. But first, I want to start on the ice.
Yeah, I remember we were talking a couple weeks ago on the show. I was like, the Eastern Conference is going to be Florida, Boston, New York, Rangers, and Carolina. Those are going to probably be your final four. Though any of those four I could see representing the East in the Stanley Cup Finals, and it's playing out pretty much like that. New York absolutely demolished Washington. They trailed in those 4 games of that sweep by a grand total of 201 seconds. They're the 6th franchise to win the President's Cup trophy and then sweep their first round opponent. The President's Cup trophy winner does not have much success in the playoffs.
Right.
It's kind of like a curse almost.
I want to talk the other side of that matchup real quick. Capitals, obviously, when you think of the Washington Capitals for the last 2 decades, you think of the great 8, Alex Ovechkin.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse, in game 4 of this series, he had his 6th lowest career playoff ice time, meaning he was on the ice for his 6th lowest amount in any playoff game he's ever played. He's 38 years old. Like I said, coming up on 2 decades in the league. Have we seen the last of him? Are we seeing the end of the tunnel for Alex Ovechkin?
These guys are the most elite athletes I can think of when it comes to professional sports. So to say that we've seen the last of Alex, I think he's past his prime for sure. But, you know, whether it's the end of the road for him, like right now, I can't say. But I don't think we'll ever see a Washington Capitals team be top notch, I guess, with Alex in the lineup still. He's past his prime. He's not going to produce the, record-setting seasons that he's posted in the past. But this one was just dominance. And then Florida, they finally got their revenge on Tampa Bay. The in-state hate, the rivalry, it's big, but it's been owned by Tampa Bay in the playoffs, especially of late. So for them to come out and win in 5 games against their rival, who's been better than them, that shows a lot.
Carter Verhaeghe, who is a former Lightning, won a championship with them in 2020. He is actually the one that scored that overtime goal in game 2 to give Florida the win.
I do think the Rangers are the best of the 4, and they're playing like it right now. But Florida has this spark to them, and they have the momentum, if you will, from last season's historic run that I think is setting themselves up well. You mentioned Carter Verhaeghe, Matthew Tkachuk still there as well. And Sergei Bobrovsky, man, dude is playing lights out in the net right now. And it's it's giving them validation. You know, they got the catharsis of knocking off Tampa Bay, their arch rival, in the first round. I think that lights that fire even harder. And, you know, this team is dangerous. Boston, I mean, they need to look past last year and put it behind them, and they've done that. Toronto, though, has really shot themselves in the foot. They're 1 of 14 on the power play. You know, it's supposed to be a man advantage, and that usually tends, when you have an extra man on the ice, supposed to help you. In Toronto's case, it is destroying themselves, because in conversely, Boston is 6 of 13 on the power play.
Brad Marchand, he came up big in game 3. He had 2 goals in the third to give them the win in that one. Boston's up 3-1 in this series. Do you think the Leafs are done for, or is it possible that they could come back in this one?
The way they're playing right now, absolutely not. They are done for. But if they play like they did in the regular season, you know, definitely think they have a chance. You know, they call it the man advantage for a reason, and they're not playing with a man advantage. So I think if they can get some momentum going and maybe get like a first goal, get a lead on them here in game 5, I think that'll set themselves up and maybe get some confidence. But, you know, the way they're playing right now, I don't think I think they're done. And then likewise for New York against Carolina, you know, I haven't seen too much of the action in this, but from what I've seen of the highlights, Carolina is controlling possession. And when you control possession in hockey, defenses get worn out. And, you know, that obviously when your defense is wore out, you're in trouble because you can't line change when you're on defense. So the Eastern Conference playing out exactly the way I thought it would, Jordan. There has been a team down 3-1, come back and win 3 straight seasons now in the NHL playoffs. So it's more likely than not actually to happen.
Wow. Mathematically speaking, we're probably going to see it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I take it then in the Islanders Hurricane series, you're not giving the Islanders a chance to come back.
No, I'm not. I do like the Islanders, but you know, it took a double overtime goal just to get New York their first win of the series. They were, you know, seconds away from getting swept by Carolina. So unless this double overtime winner by Matthew Barzal gets them, you know, some vaunted unstoppable force type momentum, yeah, I just don't see it. Frederick Anderson has been fantastic in the net for Carolina, so yeah, I don't see it coming out of the East, a 3-1 comeback.
All right, Jesse, let's switch to the Western Conference. Give us your thoughts on the series so far, on the 4 series so far, and how you see things shaking out going forward.
Hard to picture that the only series in the entire playoffs that is even right now is the 1-8 matchup in the West. It just goes to show that what Vegas does, they play their best in the postseason. And it's crazy because last year, that run that they had last season, there were people that expected it. Realistically, they were, because it's been, you know, it was their depth scoring. It was their third and fourth line that were getting it done. The difference here this year is they don't have that. They're not getting secondary and tertiary scoring. And just like Dallas, or just like Vegas, Dallas is having the same issue. Nobody's scoring in the back end of either rotation.
I think it's interesting in this one. The road team has won every game so far.
Yep.
So if we're going strictly by that, that lines up for Vegas to take game 7.
It
Just
does.
saying.
Yes.
Golden Knights, Stars, each game so far decided by 2 goals or less. So this one absolutely could go 7. Can't wait to see how that one shakes out.
Moving on to the winner of that series, we'll play the winner of Colorado and Winnipeg. I'm super excited for Winnipeg being in the playoffs in this situation, you know, that they're in right now. second best record in the West. Colorado has played very well in this series, considerably better than Winnipeg, unfortunately, because I was really rooting for them. But I'm also rooting for Colorado a little bit too because they have Casey Middlestat. He's a former Sabre, and he was like one of the bright spots of the dismal last few seasons that Buffalo has had. So seeing him be able to succeed in the playoffs, I'm sad that it's not with Buffalo, but I knew he was a playoff caliber type player. And so when we traded him away at the deadline, I was sad but happy because he was going to a contender. Before I continue, Jordan, I want to hear your thoughts on Colorado and Winnipeg.
I don't really have any thoughts other than I agree completely with you. I think the Jets are done for in this one. They took game one. It was a very high scoring affair. It was 7-6.
Yeah.
They haven't won since 2, 3, and 4. I don't know enough about hockey to definitively say those were blowouts, but they seem like blowouts to me. Valeri Nichushkin had his first hat trick ever in game 4. That's impressive. I don't think the Jets have the firepower to come back from what Colorado has essentially rolled into an avalanche over them. No pun intended. Obviously, there's a pun intended. I'm sorry. Had to get one in. Sorry,
Okay.
let's move on.
I think Colorado and Winnipeg, there's a slim chance, but it's really looking like Colorado is the better team. Just like you mentioned, they've got the 3 straight wins. But Vancouver, they tend to falter in the playoffs. They haven't won, they haven't advanced past the first round since 2019, 2020. The pressure is building. Vancouver needs this success. And Nashville has this sort of momentum, I think. And it's the one series, I think, in my opinion, that's too up in the air for me to say that Nashville, is dead in the water.
Did you know that in game 2, there were only 34 shots on goal combined?
Did not know that. Did not realize that. Did not realize that. No.
Yeah, that caught my eye. That the defense in this series, or at least in that game, was pretty crazy. And then game 3 and game 4, they were 1-goal wins. Game 4 was an overtime win. So I'm going to go ahead and agree with you that if there is a series where a 3-1 team is going to come back, it's going to be the Preds. I got the Preds. I got possibly the Islanders, but I think the Preds can do it.
I'll talk about Edmonton and Los Angeles. I'm going to tell you why I don't think Los Angeles stands a chance at coming back. They won it all in 2014, right? They took home Lord Stanley's trophy. And since that point, Jordan, they've lost 4 straight playoff series and have missed the playoffs in the other 6 seasons. Besides game 4, there was a 1-0 game, and then game 2 where they had to come back and win in overtime. The other 2 wins for Edmonton have been dominant, and Connor McDavid's the best player in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not out of the realm to say that he's going to dominate game 5 either. The way Stuart Skinner played in game 4, first career shutout in the playoffs for him in just his 16th start, 33 saves. Unless Los Angeles magically figures out how to figure him out, I think they're done as well.
Because the Kings couldn't do anything in a game like that where they held them to only 13 shots on goal, they missed a huge opportunity. So I also believe that they are done for in that one. And like you said, Connor McDavid, one of the best players in the game right now, if not the best player. He's been the assist king in this series. Again, no pun intended. Maybe slightly intended. But I don't see Edmonton slowing down anytime soon. If I was a betting man, I'd say that the series ends on Wednesday. All right, so up from Wisconsin down to Texas, Jackson is joining us to talk some NFL draft. Jackson, welcome to the show.
Howdy, howdy.
Jackson, the big news, obviously, is what happened at the 8th pick in the draft, but I want to start at the very top and work our way down, if that works for you.
Let's do this. It's not like we've done this before.
Let's start with the Chicago Bears, and no surprises at the number 1 pick. Caleb Williams goes to Chicago. At the number 9 pick, the Bears also had a pick, and they took Wide receiver, Roma Dunze from Washington. Jackson, how do you feel about the first round efforts from Chicago?
I like it. You're going to have your franchise quarterback. You're starting fresh. Unfortunately, like with what happened with Justin Fields, I know we've talked about this in the past before. Should they have stayed with him and try to move the pick? What we talked about mostly has been, what can you get in return if what I'm trying to give up? But I like that you're starting fresh with a rookie quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner. You have a great asset, adding more to the wide receiver room with Roman Dunze. Chicago is looking a little scary. I'm not saying that they're going to be winning the division. I still think it's Detroit's, but they're making a nice little push right now, especially looking towards the future.
I still think they could have got more for that first round pick. They could have got the farm for that coveted first round pick just because of how highly valued Caleb Williams is. But a guy like that, obviously they think he's worth it and they're going to take him there, or they took him there. So, good for them. They got their offense set. The next couple picks after that were also quarterbacks. And again, no surprises there. Jaden Daniels to Washington, Drake May to New England. Jackson, I want to ask you which one of these guys you think is going to be successful as a franchise quarterback, or if neither are, or possibly if both are.
I like Jaden Daniels more. I still want to see what Drake May can do. Obviously, coming from North Carolina, you don't have just like the ACC is good and all, but you're not playing against any like Georgias, Alabamas. I know you played against Florida State, but I want to see kind of how well he can transition to the NFL. And if you just build around Drake May and if you build around Jane Daniels, you're going to be fine. But I do think that starting week one, I think that he has a better arsenal at his disposal. You have Scary Terry. I know you have an aging Austin Eckler, but it's a better regime over there in Washington.
Let's move on to the fourth pick, which was the Arizona Cardinals. Now, a lot of people had the Cardinals trading out of this pick because they didn't need a quarterback. They had some other positions of need, and a lot of people were trying to get up there to get their guy. But they stayed put, and they got what is widely regarded as the best receiver in the draft by many people in Marvin Harrison Jr. How do you like the fit?
Love it. Obviously, the best wide receiver coming out of this class. Dude is unreal. He can run any route tree. I just like the pick. Obviously, we were all getting some speculation that people were going to be moving up to try to trade with Arizona, but it's what you're willing to give up and what you're willing to get in return. And instead, they went ahead and got the best wide receiver, the unanimous number one out of this class.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled about the pick as a Rams fan. I'm thrilled about the pick as a football fan because he is such a good receiver and he has Kyler Murray throwing to him. So he finally has a legit number one. So yeah, not looking forward to getting torched by him twice a year. I'll put it that way. Let's go to the Chargers pick, a pick that I don't vehemently disagree with, but I pretty strongly disagree with. I think they should have Control Alt deleted that pick when they took Joe Alt, the tackle, on that team. They needed a wide receiver. They lost Keenan Allen. They lost Mike Williams. They lost Gerald Everett. They lost Austin Eckler. Their top four pass catchers are gone. And you get a tackle. I get protecting the quarterback, but if you don't have anyone to throw to, what is Justin Herbert going to do?
If you don't have enough protection to get you to throw, what are you going to do?
Fair point. I do think there were enough offensive linemen later on in this draft to obviously not compete with Alt. I think he's the best tackle in this draft, and I don't think it was particularly close. J.C. Latham probably the next best tackle.
Mm-hmm.
But you need weapons. They had enough trouble as it was.
But you can find bargains in later rounds when it comes to wide receivers. There was wide receiver depth in this draft.
There's also offensive lineman depth.
But you want some of the prime offensive tackles that are right there early in the draft. You can obviously, Jason Kelce was a late draft pick, but you can see that Stephon Diggs, you could see that Devontae Adams, they were picked later in the draft. They weren't first round draft picks. You can obviously find some lottery tickets and find some gems later in the draft. But if you want a full-fledged, bona fide pass protector, you're going to get Joe Alt.
Let's go ahead and go to the pick that I think both of us disagree with, and that is the Falcons falconing with that 8th pick. The Atlanta Falcons in the offseason signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million deal with $100 million guaranteed. And you know what they did in the draft? They picked a quarterback. One of the most pro-ready quarterbacks graded by most people, possibly outside of Caleb Williams. Make it make sense to me, Jackson. I don't understand this pick.
I can't make it make sense because you went out and got Coles Cash Kirk Cousins. Coles Cash. Say that 3 times fast. Kirk Coles Cash Cousins. You went and got him. You are paying him $100 million guaranteed. And what your general manager is saying, we are drafting him. We're drafting Michael Penix here because we probably won't be able to be in this position to draft someone pro ready like him in the upcoming years. I'm sorry, but you needed to get someone. You needed to get a pass rusher. You need to get something because there hasn't been a good pass rusher in Atlanta in a very long time. I can't even think of anybody off the top of my head because that's how long it's been since there's been a dominant pass rusher there.
If you're starting Cousins, you end up getting Penix in his prime later down the line. He's already 24 years old. So he's going to be late 20s, almost in his 30s, which is the prime of most great quarterbacks' careers. And he's not going to have any playing time, and you're going to try to get a max contract out of that. I'd be pissed off if I was him. I'd be so upset if I was Michael Penix Jr. But I'd also be upset if I'm Kirk Cousins, because what are you doing paying me $180 million and then getting my replacement to breathe down my neck the whole time? Possibly costing me about half my contract? And even if I was to get traded as Kirk Cousins, who's going to want to take on my contract? Anyone who tries to pick me up is going to try to reconfigure that contract.
Exactly. And just think, even if the Kirk Cousins experiment doesn't go well early in the season, there are going to be fans that are going to be clamoring for Michael Penix to be started.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a terrible situation they put themselves in.
So that's not the end of the first round quarterback run, Jackson. We had J.J. McCarthy to Minnesota, Bo Nix to Denver, both within the first 12 picks. So 6 of the first 12 picks in the draft were quarterbacks, an unprecedented number that we've never seen before.
We knew that Minnesota liked J.J. McCarthy, and obviously with them getting an extra first round pick, trading with the Texans, you think that they were trying to package something to move up even further, but actually holding on to that second first round pick and getting to trade up to actually get, you didn't have to sell the farm to get JJ McCarthy, and then you're able to get, I think, what I was thinking whenever we were doing our draft show, one of the better edge rushers at 17, Dallas Turner. But back to Turner later, but you got your guy. We knew that the Vikings loved JJ McCarthy. The one that is highly questionable to me, obviously, is the Bo Nix love from Denver, because I wasn't expecting Bo Nix to go in the first round. I was expecting at least a second round slot for him. A defensive player wasn't even taken until pick 14, which was Liatu Latu. I mean, no, not pick 14, pick 15. Liatu Latu going to the Colts. Like that pick. Don't like that he's playing with the Colts. I digress. Make it make sense. Like you were asking me about the Michael Penix thing. Make it make sense. Why are the Bills trading with the Chiefs, who's been pretty much their thorn in the side in the playoffs this entire run, this dynasty run that the Chiefs have had, where you're getting a fast wide receiver who is kind of replacing what you had with Tyreek Hill, which you didn't have that kind of speed. You didn't have Cheetah the last couple seasons. And you got a new tasty weapon for Patrick Mahomes to throw to. It's ridiculous. It's just continue to just it's like Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad. They can't keep getting away with it. Can't keep getting away with it. What are you doing?
I do want to give flowers to 3 different teams. First of all, the Jacksonville Jaguars getting Brian Thomas Jr. to fall into their lap. I have no idea how that happened. True, he wasn't the best wide receiver at LSU this year. Obviously, that's Malik Neighbors. But Brian Thomas Jr. is a stud. And the fact that he fell all the way to Jacksonville late in the first round, they got themselves a guy. As far as team moves, I will say that the Philadelphia Eagles had one of the best drafts because they got the top 2 cornerbacks in the draft, Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo, and then Cooper DeJean fell to the 2nd round and fell to the Eagles. That's crazy to me. Stocked up on a dire position of need that they were lacking completely in last year. And not to be too biased, but I do think the Rams had a really good draft too. Getting Jared Verse kind of mid-first round and then trading up to get his teammate at Florida State, Braden Fisk, in the early 2nd. Defensive end and defensive tackle, respectively. To have that chemistry already going in and both of these guys getting to be plugged in as first-day starters. Look, they're not Aaron Donald. There's no replacing Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
Despite who anyone has in that GOAT debate, he is one of the greatest of all time. There's no denying that. So you can't replace him, but you're going to have to figure out how to retool that defense. And I think having those 2 stalwarts on the front of that line is really going to help them going forward as well. Last thing before I let you go, Jackson. Biggest surprise outside of Penix?
I'm still going to say that it's the Chiefs and the Bills making that trade in the first round. It's the Breaking Bad thing. Jesse Pinkman, they can't keep getting away with it. I don't understand it. Why are you trading with kind of your nemesis in the AFC? Why would you do such a thing?
For me, it's going to be Ricky Pearsall, the San Francisco 49ers got late in the first round. There was a run on wide receivers after him. Obviously, Carolina ended the first round with a wide receiver, and to start the second round, a lot of them went. Not a guy that a lot of people had going that high, and there were other guys rated ahead of him. So for them to get him, they must see something in him that we don't. Not saying he's a bad player at all. You know, he played with Anthony Richardson over there at Florida, but a little bit of a shocker considering there were some more well-knowns ahead of him.
And I do remember seeing a clip on the socials, especially CJ Stroud and Micah Parsons. They were doing their draft react show, and they were just having questions asked to him about who was getting picked. And CJ, he was in shock when the 49ers made that pick, because he was just talking so highly of him. He was hoping that he was going to fall in the second round and the Texans were potentially going to go up and draft him. But hey, at least the Texans did get CJ's tight end from Ohio State in the 4th round. So that's a good thing for him.
There you go.
Obviously, the Texans kind of had a great offseason. Their draft was good, but they had a better free agency signing a lot of people, getting obviously the Stephon Diggs, getting a lot of defensive pieces, but that we've covered that already. But Texans had an okay draft. That's where my bias is going to come in. I just want to see what happens once, training camp starts. We were talking about the Eagles. They went out and drafted in the 3rd round the first player to ever get drafted from Houston Christian University. And as some of the guys know, I got to provide color commentary for 3 games with Houston Christian and Jalix Hunt, the first player ever drafted from Houston Christian University in that program. He went in the 3rd round for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm hyped. I was actually talking with Garrett Jones. He's the head play-by-play guy. I reached out to him just after the pick was made and just saying, dude, this is awesome. First guy taken in program history, celebrate it, getting some recognition to the program, something nice for the school. And the dude actually started as playing a safety for, I believe it was Cornell, but then he moved to edge and he's just been dominant. And he came out of the Reese's Senior Bowl, a lot of pub coming for him. So I love the pick, even though it's for the Eagles. If I was going to buy an Eagles jersey, it would be a Jalix Hunt.
Well, thank you, Jackson, for hopping on all the way from Texas. Our next stop is going to be Northern California. Jackson, appreciate you, man. We'll see you next week.
Adios.
A familiar face is rejoining the Circus Catch this week. You may know him from appearing on a couple of episodes last year, winning the contest and talking about his beloved Timberwolves, Making his season 2 debut, ladies and gentlemen, Kyle Rhodes back on the show. Kyle, welcome back to the Circus Catch.
Thank you for having me, and hello to all the listeners out there.
Kyle, it's been a while since we've had you on. I think it was January of last year was your last appearance. So a few things have changed, but not much. Good to see you again, my friend.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and continue this theme of the NFL draft. I want to talk about your football team, your 49ers. Before the draft, let's go back to what they did last season. They had obviously a very successful year in many opinions. My estimation of success is, did you improve on last year? And they did. They went from NFC Championship to Super Bowl appearance. So in that sense, I see it as a successful season. Do you see it that way?
You know, realistically, I do. Whenever you play Patrick Mahomes to within one play, I think you have to deem that a success. You know, it was a hotly contested Super Bowl, couple of plays here, a couple of plays there. That's realistically all that you can ask for. And just from a fan's perspective, the competitive nature of that Super Bowl, I think, you know, you don't want to lose the Super Bowl, but to go back and forth like that and realistically go punch for punch, pound for pound with someone like Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, you know, to be a prisoner of the moment, you're frustrated, but a couple of months later, you know, I think realistically you have to deem that as a successful season.
49ers making the NFC Championship 4 of the last 5 years and the Super Bowl 2 of the last 5. I'd say it's been a successful run so far. Part of that, especially in the latter half, is due to the play of Brock Purdy. Kyle, at this moment, what is your level of trust in the man formerly known as Mr. Irrelevant?
You know, it's pretty good. Obviously, from a skill standpoint, he's not Joe Burrow, he's not Josh Allen, and realistically, he doesn't have to be. You know, the Shanahan offense is so tailor-made for throwing with anticipation, making the correct reads, and, you know, getting the ball out with timing. And he does excel at that. So compared to some of the previous quarterbacks that we've had in Shanahan's tenure, he's definitely the best, I think, with anticipation and his timing. And I think with a stacked roster, I mean, obviously he's good enough to get us to the Super Bowl. And again, I think if Mahomes doesn't have the ball last, you know, maybe we win. So I do feel like if the cards break right, I think Brock Purdy can win a Super Bowl.
It's kind of strange to me that at this time last year, the conversation was, is it going to be Purdy starting? Is it going to be Darnold? Is it going to be even Trey Lance was available at this time last year to start? But they ended up going with Purdy, and obviously it was the right decision. Let's go ahead and move forward to the draft. Let's talk about the 49ers first round pick, Ricky Pearsall. A little bit of a surprise, little bit of a unknown as far as first rounders go. What are your thoughts, your initial thoughts on Ricky?
So I love the player and love the system fit. Not sure that I love the value. The reason being, a lot of mocks, and look, media, fans, we're always wrong, right? But a lot of the mocks had him, you know, mid-second round, as kind of far as like a consensus grade. As far as the system fit, the route tree that he runs, his agility, the things that Kyle Shanahan really values in his receivers, A++, excellent downfield blocker in the run game. One of the best routes he runs is that deep cross, which is something that Shanahan loves to throw, and Brock Purdy throws that with phenomenal anticipation. He's quick, he's agile, in and out of breaks. So although I love the player, you know, I'm not sure that I love the value.
Brandon Ayuk seeking the Brinks truck, essentially. Do you think it is possible for the 49ers to finagle that, or do you see him possibly on the move?
You know, the Pearsall move actually makes me think that Ayuk is going to re-sign. You know, if forced between keeping Ayuk or Debo, you know, it's tough because quite clearly Ayuk is a better receiver. I think Debo's a better football player. I think Debo brings a lot of intangibles as far as just that mental toughness and that mental edge. But look, Debo's injury history is a thing. He's getting a little bit up there in age. If you look at his receptions and carries, guy's got a lot of wear and tear on his body, and he's not getting any younger. So, you know, if forced to choose between the two, I think I would re-sign Ayuk. I think he's probably worth the money he's seeking. He's probably the best blocking receiver in the NFL. He's a great route runner, great hands, great chemistry with Brock. I think Ayuk stays, and Debo, there's a big cap hit this year, but next year that cap hit's greatly diminished. I think Debo could actually be a cut candidate at the end of next season.
All right, let's go from the NFL draft over to the NBA because the playoffs are going on right now. And Kyle, your Minnesota Timberwolves are making a lot of noise, even more so compared to last year. Last year, they were the 8th seed via the play-in, lost in the first round, 4-1 to the Denver Nuggets. This year, they are the 3 seed. They were very close to being the 1 seed, right there with OKC and Denver. This year, what have been the keys to their success?
I think a commitment to defense. They say that Rudy Gobert is kind of a one-man defensive anchor, and to some extent he is. But a lot of it is him and Mike Conley as veterans getting buy-in from the younger guys to commit to defense. We know that Jaden McDaniels is an excellent perimeter defender. Anthony Edwards took a huge step forward this year as far as being a defender to where now he's a plus defender. Naz Reid early in his career was simply a scoring guy off the bench. He is now blocking shots. He's coming over from the weak side. So I would say it's really the leadership of Conley and Gobert getting all those young guys to buy in and be committed on the defensive end. A lot of our advanced defensive metrics lead the NBA this year. And look, on paper, a lot of it's going to look like Gobert, and it is, but it's commitment from a lot of those other guys as well.
So that being said, the fact that so many guys are contributing to that defense over there, does that mean that Gobert shouldn't win Defensive Player of the Year and it should be Victor Wembanyama?
I think Victor deserves it based on this. I saw a stat, and I think it was Bleacher Report or one of those outlets a couple of weeks ago. The Timberwolves had, I believe, 4 of the top 15 rated defensive players in the NBA for advanced defensive metrics. The second highest player on the Spurs was like 40th or 50th. So Gobert, Edwards, McDaniels, and I believe actually Towns were all in the top 15 in like defensive metrics, and the Spurs had no one. And when you look at what Victor's doing from like a blocks and steals standpoint, I believe he only ended the season at 27 or so minutes a game. You get that guy up to 35, 38 minutes a game. Like, how many shots is he going to block, and how many more shots is he altering? So, look, we had, talks before the draft about Victor, and I wasn't sure if his play was going to merit to the hype. If I'm a voter, I'm voting Victor over Rudy, for those reasons.
What do you think has been the biggest surprise this year from Minnesota? Mike Conley, Jaden McDaniels, what would you say?
Wow. That's a tough question. How about this from a mental standpoint? I think the biggest surprise is Karl Anthony Towns accepting and really embracing the fact of becoming a more team-oriented player. Early in his career, he was known to kind of sniffle and cry a little bit about certain things. And I think he's content just being a cog on the wheel. When you look at him last night, he was off the floor for the final 6 or 7 minutes once Phoenix was really running a small ball lineup, and he was smiling on the sidelines. And granted, they're winning. But I think it's his mind state that he has finally accepted now that, look, Anthony Edwards is the clear alpha on this team. I'm going to need to fit in a different manner. And I think it's really served the team well for some of the younger guys to see, like, look, this guy's a multiple-time All-Star, and he's really trying to find a way to fit in rather than fit out. I think it serves as a good example to the younger players.
It's a great point. Anytime they're your number 1 overall pick, which he was, people forget that. It's definitely hard to deal with an ego like that sometimes. And we've seen it from Cat in the past. So yeah, that's a great point. Let's go into the series that we're seeing right now. By the time this episode comes out, more games will have been played, but at the time of recording, the Wolves are up in this series 3-0. My personal thoughts on this series were that the Wolves were going to get it done, but they were going to get it done in 7 games. These first 3 games have been double-digit wins for the Timberwolves. How have they been so dominant over a team with Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and of course Devin Booker?
I mean, it's pretty easy. Anthony Edwards has been the best player in the series, and it's not even close. And going into this series, I don't know that we would have necessarily felt that way. Um, it might just be Anthony Edwards' time. And look, I think historically, we're going to start having a little bit of questions about Kevin Durant. I think a few years ago, conversations were, is he already moving into a top 12, 15-ish player of all time? Now it's looking like, is he going to become kind of lost as one of those guys who is an elite scorer, but maybe is not top 20 of all time? And with someone like Devin Booker, and Devin Booker's still young enough that his story is still to be written. But a couple of years ago, when Phoenix made the finals, they were saying this guy's the next guy up. And I think Booker's still an amazing player. But when you look at the West, I'll pose this question to you right now: who are you taking, Anthony Edwards or Devin Booker?
Come on, Anthony Edwards. Yeah, not close.
SGA or Devin Booker?
SGA.
Luka Doncic or Devin Booker?
Luka.
The West has become very, very competitive. And look, ultimately, Kevin Durant, first ballot Hall of Famer. Devin Booker may very well become a Hall of Famer too. But it just feels like with some of these young guys, especially in the West, their time is coming, and it's coming quickly. And, SGA looks like a force to be reckoned with. Luka's been playing amazing. So I just think in this series, I think it's just kind of Ant's been a force to be reckoned with. And I don't think that Phoenix has matched his level of intensity or physicality or just his will to get it done.
Looks like second round is going to be a rematch of last year's first round playoff of Nuggets and Timberwolves. What are your thoughts on a potential series rematch between the Nuggets and the Wolves?
Man, the thing about the Nuggets, and it played out last year in our series, and it's playing out this year in their series versus the Lakers. We'll play them close, and the Lakers were playing them close. In the final 5 to 8 minutes of the game, Denver just does not make mistakes, and it starts with Joker always making the right pass. It always starts with Aaron Gordon with very timely defense. I just think they are so mentally tough late in games that, last year the series was 4-1 Denver. We were in almost every game, and we played them very competitively, maybe more competitively than anyone in the West played them throughout the duration of the playoffs. But just late in games, they'd find a way to pull away. And they're doing that to the Lakers. A lot of these games with the Lakers so far, the Lakers are feeling pretty good early. And then Denver just finds a way to pull it out late. And I just think they're so smart. They're so well coached. You look at their core four guys. So Jokic, Murray, Porter, and Aaron Gordon, they just fit so well together. They all do something very different. They're happy to play together, and the chemistry is just there. Now, that being said, we are playing very good. I do think it's certainly possible that we could beat them in, maybe a 7-game series. I would definitely give the slight edge to Denver just due to their experience. I do think it would be a hell of a series, though. I think it'd be entertaining, and whatever it ends up being, whether it's a 7-game series, 6-game series, those games I feel like will be hotly contested. And I think from an entertainment standpoint, I think it'd be a phenomenal series. From the East, can any of those teams beat whoever comes out of the West?
No, I don't even think the Celtics can.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I feel like they kind of breezed through the regular season, and a talented team. It's not like I think they'll get swept in the finals, but man, the West is just a juggernaut right now. You look at some of those teams, even in the middle of the pack of the West, I think would probably beat the Celtics in a series. So
I'd probably at this point take Dallas over Boston.
One thing Dallas can do is score in bunches. And man, if Doncic and Irving are hot in the same game, they can beat anyone in the NBA.
Well, Kyle, thanks for your insight, and thanks for coming back on the Circus Catch. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for having me. Go Wolves.
Last stop on our nationwide tour lands us up in Bozeman, Montana with Mr. Austin Parr. Austin, how you doing this evening?
We're cold, man. It's May 1st tomorrow, and it's still snowing in Bozeman. Get me out of here, please.
That's crazy. That is crazy. We've gotten almost up to 100 over here, and you guys are still experiencing snow. That's wild to me.
32 degrees currently, snow on the ground.
I hate to bring up a sore subject, but last night, or I should say Monday night, your Lakers eliminated from the playoffs by the reigning champion Denver Nuggets. It was a 5-game series rather than last year's 4-game series. The Lakers did get a win in at home, but in the end, the Denver Nuggets did complete the mission and are on to the second round.
Yeah, another tough loss, another Jamal Murray game winner. Don't understand why they let him take that final shot again after you already blew a 20-point lead to him in game 2 in Denver and allowed him to get that game winner. The crazy stat to me is the amount of time that the Lakers led in this series, yet they lost 4-1. When it was 3-0 in game 4, ESPN put up a stat which was phenomenal. The Lakers had led 142 minutes of the series, while the Nuggets had led 42 minutes, and it was 3-0. That doesn't make any sense. That just means you are not a second half team. Mike Malone is making way more adjustments than you going into the second half of every single game because the Lakers had a double-digit lead in every single basketball game. I mean, it's just super disappointing. You obviously didn't want to see them in the first round of the postseason, but here's the thing. The Lakers did this to themselves. They shouldn't have been fighting for a playoff spot in the first place, and they should not have been in the play-in, considering, yeah, I know the West teams are strong, but the way this roster was constructed, they were supposed to be a top team in the West, and they just heavily disappointed yet again.
Well, it seemed like coming into this playoffs that all the focus was on the Suns and their big three, the Lakers with their 2 dominant players, and then the Warriors possibly doing their last dance this year. That was the focus going in, which team's going to make a run, even though they're a little bit further behind. But to be honest with you, we didn't talk about these top 3 seeds very much. Oklahoma City, Denver, and Minnesota. Maybe that should have been the focus. Not me and you personally, but just the media in general was not focused on these 3 teams. These 3 teams all dominated their series. OKC beating New Orleans in 4 games. Even though game 1 was extremely close and game 4, it took a comeback for the Thunder to win. Are the Thunder here, Austin? Have they arrived?
I'm still not convinced. And I think the biggest reason why the media weren't talking about all these teams is because a team like OKC is so young, super young. Is Shai Gilgeous here? Absolutely, 100%. He's one of the top players in the league right now. And we're seeing a shift in the talent in the NBA. The Steph, the KD, LeBron era is pretty much over at this point. I don't know if we'll ever see any of those 3 ever win a title again. The Anthony Edwards, the Shai Gilgeous Alexanders, obviously Jamal Murray and the Nuggets are still there. We're seeing a completely different change. But to go back to your question, the Thunder, to me, are very young still. Can they win an impressive series, right? I mean, no Zion Williamson for the Pelicans. That doesn't impress me, to be honest. I didn't think the Pelicans were that good. If the Lakers would have got matched up with them, it probably would have been a 4-0 sweep as well. So I'm not impressed with the Thunder, and I don't know if they're actually here yet. They're well on their way. Don't get me wrong, because I love all the players that are on that basketball team, especially Chet Holmgren.
Chet Holmgren, definitely a difference maker this year, taking the OKC from a play-in fail last year to a number 1 seed in the West. And I don't think you get to the number 1 seed without being an extremely good team. But to that point, getting this year under their belt is really going to help them. And next year, nobody's going to want to face them. They're going to be crazy scary next year. So I agree with you on that point. But the matchup next series, OKC, who are they going to play? The Clippers or the Mavericks? I'm still taking the Mavericks on this one. I said if Kawhi was healthy, it would be the Clippers, but Kawhi is out for the 2nd time in this series because of his knee. When Luka and Kyrie are on, they're on. They're possibly the best duo in the NBA. The Clippers, they do have the firepower, Austin, but I don't think they have the consistency that they need to win this series. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the Clippers, they're not healthy. I mean, this is, I feel like this is every year with Kawhi, some sort of injury where it's lingering and then it flares up in the postseason and he's not able to fully compete for his basketball team. And that team is not put together to not have a guy like that. I mean, you're talking about a guy who can definitely average 25, 30 points a game and have those games where he goes out for 40. I mean, He's one of the best defenders in the entire league. Like, yeah, Paul George can get hot, and yeah, James Harden had a phenomenal game last game. But are you expecting Russell Westbrook to go out and be that triple-double machine that he used to be? No, we're long far past that. And I don't think Harden has enough to keep the consistency going like you were talking about throughout the series to get it done against a team like Dallas, who, yeah, we saw them kind of struggle. At least Luka struggled last game. Kyrie had a phenomenal game. But I think Dallas has the firepower to get it done, and it would be just another disappointing season for the Clippers, which, I mean, let's be honest, they do this every year, so it's no surprise.
Speaking of bad matchups, when Miami got matched up against Boston, a little part of me thought, oh, okay, here we go again. It's Boston, but they have such trouble with Miami. But Jimmy Butler's not playing, so it's been relatively easy for Boston to skate through this series.
Yeah, they're very good defensively. So, like, even on off nights of shooting with Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, it hasn't really been a problem for Boston. They look like the number one team. They look like the best team in the league. Here's the problem, though. I don't know if you saw the breaking news, but Porzingis is out for several weeks, and that is not good for their title run. I mean, he is somebody that puts together 25, 30 points a game, and he's having one of the best defensive years, I think, of his entire career. To be honest, he's been phenomenal down in the paint for Boston.
Let's just say, for the sake of argument, Boston does move on. They are set to play either Cleveland or Orlando, who just got wrapped up with Game 5 at the time of recording. Cleveland did win that game very slightly. Now, a couple weeks ago, I did say watch out for the Magic, and I do believe that the Magic have a lot of magic in them. No pun intended. Some pun intended.
A little bit.
But they're killers at home. They can beat anybody in Orlando. They cannot beat anyone on the road. They are the worst road team of the teams in the playoffs, and it's showing. They've lost 3 games in Cleveland now. So that would be my big concern for them. But Cleveland's got some dudes.
Their time is not quite here yet. They're very, very young. And don't get me wrong, they have a lot of great pieces. And Paolo Banchero looks like, I mean, he's going to be a dominant force for the next 10, 15 years in the NBA. But I mean, like you said, they can't win on the road. They don't have that playoff experience. I don't think it's their time yet. That's why I see Cleveland winning this series and moving on. It would be, I agree, it would be an interesting matchup with Cleveland, but during the regular season, I guess with Porzingis, Boston did dominate Cleveland. So that would actually, the series would get tighter without Porzingis. But I still just the defense from Boston, I think, is what propels them through that series, regardless whether they face Orlando or Cleveland.
Like we were just saying, that Philly-New York series, man, it's a series. It is a series now. It's at the time of recording, it's 3-2 in favor of New York. That game, too, if it weren't for those screw-ups at the end, both by the Sixers and by the officials who came out and admitted they made various mistakes in that last minute of the game, it could be 3-2 in favor of Philly instead. This next game's going to be in Philly. I don't know if you saw Embiid called out the fans without calling out the fans. There were a lot of New York Knicks fans in the 76ers arena. Yeah, these Sixers fans, these season ticket holders, they're selling their tickets because they're super expensive. It's the Knicks fans that are buying them up. And it's the Knicks fans that are making noise in Philly. And when your best player is calling you out as fans, especially being Philly fans, you need to get in there. You need to make something happen.
I agree. I mean, first off, isn't Philly supposed to be like one of the most passionate sports fan bases on the planet?
That's the shocking thing to me.
Like, hello, you got to show up for the postseason. And especially when you guys limped into the postseason and you have a chance to knock out a high seed in the first round, and then that could propel you onto a big time run into the NBA postseason. I mean, Embiid looks like, whether he's hurt or not, he could still put up numbers. And Tyrese Maxey, I mean, did you see that logo 3 to tie the game and send it to overtime? This guy does not want to go home, and he's not going to go out easy. And I mean, that's a player right there that can propel you to a deep championship run, whether they make it to the finals or not. I could see them winning this series. Obviously, you know, they just won in New York. They just did it at the time of recording. They just did it. I mean, they got to obviously go home and take care of business in Philly, but this look out. I mean, if Philly gets through this series with the Knicks, don't be surprised if it's Philly and Boston back in the Eastern Conference.
I promise you I won't be surprised. I've been screaming this for weeks that Joel Embiid's coming back. Philly's going to go on a run. If Philly can match up against Boston, Boston's not going to get out of the first round if they face Philly. I've been preaching this for a while, but the problem with that, they might not make it out of this first round because the Knicks have been stepping up. All the other players, in the absence of Julius Randle, who's still out with that shoulder injury. Obviously, Jalen Brunson is Jalen Brunson, but you've got Dante DiVincenzo, who's been playing 1,000 times better than he normally does. You've got Anunoby, who's really stepped up. It was an amazing trade for them. Josh Hart as well. So you've got all the Knicks players stepping up at the right time. So they may not make it out of this series, but if they do, yes, I 100% agree. Watch out for the 76ers. And this last series that we're going to talk about, it's a tough one to predict because Game 5 is happening to my right now. At the time of recording, we don't know what the outcome is going to be. Bucks are up by 5 at halftime. But man, the injuries have just been killing them. Not that Indiana wouldn't play them well anyways. Indiana destroyed them in the regular season, but no Giannis. Dame's been in and out. Chris Middleton's been in and out. Dude, the Bucks have had some of the worst luck that I've seen, but not to take anything away from the Pacers, right?
No, not at all. I mean, like you said, they dominated them in the regular season, and this was the matchup that probably Milwaukee fans and Milwaukee media didn't want to see. I mean, they didn't want to see the Pacers in the first round. And Indiana did a great job at getting Pascal Siakam in the offseason to add another piece around Tyrese Halliburton. And I think you asked about the Thunder being here. I think the Pacers are here with Tyrese. I mean, he is a superstar, and he is ready to be that next great player. I'm not going to say he's going to be the best player in the league, but he has been very, very dominant this season and early on in this postseason. And, unfortunately for Milwaukee, you're talking about the injuries. I mean, they don't have enough pieces behind Dame and Giannis both sitting out for them to get it done in this series. So I know you said it's impossible to predict, but I don't see that Milwaukee is surviving this. They need a fully healthy offseason with Dame and Giannis. Figure it out then, see where to go from there, and move on. Let's not hit the panic button if we're Milwaukee fans.
Yeah, it doesn't look good for them. And like you said, Halliburton and Siakam, getting them together was a dangerous move that proved to be super successful. Getting those two guys together, Siakam has been playing lights out in a complementary role to Halliburton, who, like you said, probably a top 10 player in the East, possibly top 5 now. He's here. He's arrived. Maybe not the team as a whole, but he's here.
I mean, don't forget the guy next to Siakam and Miles Turner. I mean, he is a freak athlete. Like that dunk that he threw down the other game. Oh, you know who that looked like? The guy who just retired. That looked like a Blake Griffin style dunk. Throw it into the basket because you're that far out and you're just dunking over a big body and a Brooke Lopez. Like, that's just insane to me.
We've been all over the country today. Austin, thank you for closing us out up in snowy Bozeman, Montana.
Yeah, hopefully this, it is May 1st tomorrow, so hopefully the snow goes away. But thanks for having me, as always. Love it.
Appreciate you, man. Well, from Tulare, California, out to, where did we go first? Madison, Wisconsin, Spring, Texas, up to Folsom, California, and then out to Bozeman, Montana. From all of those places, all over this beautiful country, we will see you guys next week. Sayonara.
Go Dodgers.
Had to ruin it.